Well, today we will have time to really go through a lot, and I'm going to just share with you Ariix and Nutrify Slenderize from a physician's perspective. Now, everybody's asking me questions about this or that. I hope I answer almost all of them before we finish, because I have time. Last night was quick. You saw some overview of what I share, and the underlying problem is oxidative stress. But I want to, a lot of people have trouble understanding that concept. So what I'd like to do today is just give you an illustration. What I find is that if you look at a wood fireplace burning, now people here, you don't have as cold a weather. I'm from South Dakota in the United States. We freezing, I mean, minus 20 degrees Fahrenheit. But I can heat my whole house with a wood fireplace. And what we find is that if you watch that fire burn, 90–95% of the time it burns just fine. But occasionally there's a spark and a hot cinder comes out and burns a little hole in the carpet. Well, that's not a big deal, but day after day, month after month, year after year, you got a pretty ratty carpet in front of your fireplace. Well, think about this. The furnace of your cell, the mitochondria, the furnace of your cell is like that fireplace. And that hot cinder is like a free radical. And your carpet is like your body. And it just depends on which part of your body wears out first. If it's your brain, you could suffer from Parkinson's disease or Alzheimer's dementia. If it's your eyes, you could develop a cataract or macular degeneration. If it's your joints, you could have arthritis or rheumatoid. If it's your arteries, you can have a heart attack or a stroke. That's what we're talking about. It's this process. However, we are not defenseless against that process, because nutritional supplementation, antioxidants, and their supporting nutrients are like the glass door or the fine wire mesh you put in front of the fireplace. Yes, the sparks are going to fly, but your body, the carpet, is protected. That's what we're talking about. And remember, balance is the key. You want to have enough antioxidants on board to handle the number of free radicals you're making. Now, it's not steady. The number of free radicals you and I produce each day is not the same. There are many things that increase the number of free radicals you and I produce. I was talking to an athlete right here. And there's a guy named Dr. Kenneth Cooper who coined the term aerobics in the United States. He's the exercise guru. He's an MD. And he proved in his aerobic center in Dallas, Texas, that if you work out or you exercise mild to moderately, the number of free radicals that go up just a little bit. But if you over-exercise, they go up exponentially off the graph. Well, you know, so he saw that these super marathon runners or these super exercisers were coming into his clinic dying prematurely from heart attacks, strokes, cancer between the ages of 45 and 55. So when Liz had her improvement and I saw this, the very first book I got was his book. Dr. Kenneth Cooper is called The Antioxidant Revolution. As a doctor, I heard antioxidants, but I didn't really understand it. So I read his book, I researched his research. And the thing that I found is I didn't have many marathon runners. You know, in my practice, I had a few. But what you find is stress is the same way. If you have mild to moderate stress, the number of free radicals you produce go up a little bit. But if you're under chronic stress or severe stress, it goes up exponentially off the graph. That's why when you see people under a lot of stress, I can just know in a year or within a year or so they're going to come down with a serious illness. We just see it all the time. Pollutants in our air, food, and water increase the number of free radicals you produce. That's just part of it. Drugs I prescribe, especially chemotherapeutic drugs, they significantly increase free radicals. Sunlight, radiation, all of this, cigarette smoke, significantly increases free radical production. Secondary smoke, that's why in the United States we're seeing children of parents that smoke, or we're around a lot of smoke, suffer. So what it is that we teach, and what I've learned in my medical practice, is if we're going to slow down the progression of these diseases, these small changes that occur over a prolonged period of time. For example, we know, all researchers know, cancers take decades to develop. Everybody agrees with that. And so what happens is, at the very end, that's when we diagnose disease. We don't have symptoms, we feel normal. I mean, you can take Steve Jobs, the Apple guru, he had pancreatic cancer. You can look at Patrick Swayze, the actor, he had pancreatic cancer. They die very quickly. We had a Senator Ted Kennedy, had a brain tumor, and he just, they lived 6 months. My mother passed away from a brain tumor. And when she got it, the doctor came in, the radiation therapist, after they made the diagnosis, we should do radiation therapy, and she asked a simple question. What is the chances of radiation extending my life? He said, less than 1%. That's true. I had a patient come in, the last patient I had that had lung cancer, we saw it. We used to take chest x-rays, every year on smokers, trying to pick up lung cancer. And then the American Cancer Society told doctors, don't do it anymore. I said, why? Because by the time we see it on the lung, it's too late. It's spread all over the body. And so I saw a patient that had it. We put him in the hospital. It had already spread to the bones in his neck and in his lung, and it had gone to his liver. So he wasn't a surgical candidate. Doctors want to cut out cancers. But he was not a surgical candidate, so he said, we'll do chemo. And so I happened to be in the room when the doctor was, or the radiation therapist and oncologist were in, and said, you need to do my chemotherapy. And he said, well, what's the chances? What are my chances? He says, if you take my chemo, I can get you into remission 40% of the time. I said, well, that's better than zero. But then he asked the question, well, what do you mean, doctor, by remission? He says, well, if I can get you into remission, I can extend your life 3 months. He literally laughed because it's too late. So what you learn is that in medicine, we need to be doing things to try to prevent disease. It's much easier to protect your health than it is to try to regain it after you've lost it. Now, I work with patients every day, and I consult every day people who've lost their health, trying to regain it. But I have learned it's better to be more aggressive, because as a traditional physician in medicine, we just put out fires. We are so busy treating disease that we don't have time, to talk about prevention. I followed a cardiologist around, a heart specialist, and you would go in and he had all these patients in intensive care unit that had had heart attacks the day before or the 2 days before. So he's up there making rounds, boom. There's someone coming in the ER with a cardiac arrest. So he runs down to the ER. And they're resuscitating, and then he's taking them off to the cath lab to, do an angiogram and put a stent in, or maybe go to bypass surgery. Then he's back up seeing his intensive care patients. Then he turns around and he has to go to the office and see the people who had the heart attack the week or two before. That's their life. That's the way we live, because we're so busy treating disease. So what we find in traditional medicine, and I was this way, I told you last night, for 20 years plus. I'm a traditional physician. You know, I actually understood disease, I treated it, I knew what to do, but we're disease and drug oriented. But what I did, when I started to study nutritional medicine, I started to realize even what I was calling preventive medicine was not. It was just early detection of disease. So when I have a patient come in for a routine well physical, what am I doing as a doctor? Well, I'm getting mammograms, I'm doing PSA, which is for prostate cancer, or recommending we do a colonoscopy or check for colon cancer. I'm doing blood work to see if they have diabetes that they're not aware of. I'm checking their blood pressure because that's silent. Do they have high blood pressure? Everything I'm doing is trying to see if they have disease. If they don't have any, I pat them on the shoulder and say, good, you're healthy, out the door you go. But you don't know that. That's why I shared with you the first sign of heart disease over half the time is sudden death or a heart attack. Over half the time. There's no chance. They don't even, 30+% don't even make it to the hospital. It's over. So this is why when you enter in Ariix, you're entering the health and wellness industry. Now, I know Ariix is an opportunity company. You have a lot of different ways. But what I'm going to share with you is I have learned it's best to come and talk to you and share this information with you and let you spread the information. You spread the message of health and wellness. And everybody says, well, oh, you know, I'm afraid. I don't know. How do I do this? Let me just give you an example. When a doctor, like me, becomes a traditional doctor and all of a sudden starts to learn about true preventive medicine, true preventive medicine is equipping the body to fight off disease. That's what we're doing. We're building up the body's natural defenses. And there are all these health benefits for my patients who take high quality, complete and balanced nutritional supplements. So I began recommending nutritional supplements to my patients as part of a healthy lifestyle. Yes, I want my patients to be eating a healthy diet. I want them to supplement a healthy diet, eating those good low glycemic carbs, and I'll get into that here in a little bit. The good, good fats, the good proteins. But I also want them to be exercising modestly. Now, if you're a super athlete, I've talked to you, there's ways to challenge that. But what you do, now I've learned I also recommend supplements. Well, because you do that, doctors, they wonder about you. You know, what are you doing? What's happening? So my doctor friends come up to me and they say, Ray, why do you recommend supplements to your patients? And and I shared this last night. Well, have you ever recommended exercise? But it's a very important point. Have you, anybody here, ever recommended, gee, we should start exercising, or we should do this, or maybe we should eat a little bit and be healthy? See, what scares people is when you start recommending supplements, you think you're treating a disease. You're not. You're not. All we're doing is we're providing and building up the body's natural defenses. I'm not treating a disease when I recommend for my wife on fibromyalgia or anybody else. I'm building up their body's natural defenses and trying to bring this oxidative stress back under control. And I've been seeing tremendous health benefits by doing that, but I'm not treating anything. So when you recommend you should take supplements, there's health benefits. That's what I wrote my book about. Just trying to teach you how to share this message of health. That's what you're doing, and that's easy. And some will decide and that. And then there's always the argument, well, it costs money. Oh, I don't have the time to do this. I can't I don't have time to exercise. I can't eat well. I can't do this. Well, trust me, I listened to a gentleman early on named Dr. Michael Kogan. And he said, well, if you don't want to spend time and effort, protecting your health, just plan on spending a lot of time and effort being sick. Just think about it. And there's ladies here that know what I'm saying, because let's, for example, ladies, you go to your doctor and they say, oh, I found this lump. You have breast cancer. Or, you know, well, what happens? Well, they're going to biopsy, they're going to do a lumpectomy, maybe some surgery. Then you're going to face 6 months or plus of serious chemotherapy. You're going to lose your hair, you're going to lose your health. Then you don't know if you're even going to be effective. You have a stroke. Man, your life ends, you know, because you can't function. And even though you might recover a bit, it's there. So what I try to teach my patients is, like I said, if you're not proactively trying to protect your health, you're slowly losing your health. It's just a matter of time. Now, even if you do everything, you're going to lose your health at some time. But it's quality of life. And the medical literature shows, it shows us that the best way to protect your health is building up your body's natural defenses. So this is what we're going to talk about today. Now, I'm talking about the Nutrify products, and I want to share with you how I approach looking at these products and try to make it simple enough to give you some understanding. But I don't want you to become a nutritional nut. I don't want you to, you know, all you do is you realize, well, I take this in the morning and I take this at night with food and I go on with life. But it's one of the easiest ways, lifestyle changes to make. It's not that hard. It takes about a minute of your day. People say, well, I hate taking pills, or I hate doing this. But I'll tell you, the health benefits people can receive, and you start to see it. Because I'm a results person. I want to see results. I just walked down the stairs. I bet you I had a half a dozen people want to tell me how much they improved taking the Ariix products. They wanted to share that. They couldn't believe it. Well, when I wrote my book, I went to the publisher that was selling it last night. He said it's been here 15 years. Time flies when you're having fun, right? 15 years it's been in Hebrew. And I used to get consults, you know, from a lot of people in Israel, because I did online consults early on. I don't do them anymore, but what happens is that I would look up what supplements were available in Israel. I mean, my book has been translated, like I said, in 30 different languages. So I get consults from India. I get them from Portugal. I get them from, you know, Brazil, because it's in Portuguese. You know, so what happens, I always check what products can I recommend, because I'm doing a consult. Well, in Israel, you just didn't have much good choice. You just didn't have it. And I knew before I even talked about it that you're not going to have any results by my recommendations. But now, Ariix has entered the Israeli market, and the first thing that I want to share with you is the fact you have to look at the quality of products and how they manufacture. See, the biggest problem for a physician going from traditional medicine to nutritional medicine and health and wellness and preventive medicine is the fact it's an unregulated market. Companies basically never do any quality control. They don't, in the United States, I would say 60–70% of the nutritional supplements sold go through no quality control. You don't have a clue what's on, you know, in your capsule or tablet, even though they put it on the label. They don't have to even have anything. And in fact, they've done research and they've found that there's even toxic things in your supplements. They can cause problems with your health. Well, then some companies will follow what they call food grade good manufacturing practices. That's the next level. But to have that certification, and sometimes you'll see GMP, what they find is that they only have to have about 25 to 30% of what they say on the label actually in their capsule or tablet. The other thing is you don't know what the raw products are. What a lot of products and minerals that they put in, they're not even absorbed. You just don't know. So, as a physician, When I wrote a brand name drug, you know, it had 100 milligrams and it's a brand name drug, and I wrote the prescription. That company, to have a brand name label from our FDA, had to be 1% one side or the other. It could only be off 1%. And you pay a lot more money for a brand name drug. Now, a generic drug, they give them more latitude. They need to be 30% one side or the other of that. That's what I'm used to. So when I get into nutritional medicine, I realized early on, you had to go with a company that voluntarily wanted to raise the standard of the quality of their products. And so when I went to look at Ariix, the first thing I looked at was their manufacturing. And what I really was excited about was, number one, they were FDA registered. Your companies are not required to do that, but they called the FDA in to review all of their manufacturing practices, got their seal of approval voluntarily. But here's the key. This is just something that a lot of people miss, is OTC. Ariix's manufacturing facility is licensed to manufacture over-the-counter drugs. There is no better quality manufacturing of drugs, let alone supplements. That is critical to me, because what that does, it allows everything for them to put this seal up of 100% potency guarantee. What does that mean? That means if there's 100 milligrams in the table, it's in the cap on the label, it's in the capsule. And it has to be there until, you know, you know, as far as the longevity of that tablet and its expiration date. So they can take the capsules off at expiration date and it has that amount in. That's the guarantee, because it's OTC and FDA registered. Now, they do follow good manufacturing practices, but it's pharmaceutical grade. It's not food grade. So the quality of manufacturing is so important. But even more than that is, where do you get the raw products to put in your capsules? And the previous company that I spoke for 12, 15 years, never would tell me where they got their raw products. I was on their advisory board. I spoke for them, but they would never tell me where they got their raw products. So the first thing I did with Ariix, I says, where do you get this product? Where do you get that product? Where do you get your grapeseed? They told me everything, and they'll tell you. You've had Deanna Latson here. Deanna will tell you exactly where she gets every raw product that's there. That is critical, because then it does not allow the company to cheat on you and dumb down or get worse and worse products. Because if you don't have good pharmaceutical grade raw products, and I'm going to use one example, and I mentioned that the grapeseed extract, it comes from Indina. It's out of Italy. It's a private company, but I know that from my research, they produce the absolute best grapeseed extract in the world. There are 200 different companies that produce grapeseed extract. Most of them are junk. They're not any good. But the next best to Indina, well, first of all, Indina, before it sends its raw product to, to the Ariix manufacturing plant, they check for over 350 pollutants and toxins in their product before they send it. The next best company, which isn't even half the price, they check for 30. And then you go down from that. And so, as a physician, I want results, but if you don't get what you're paying for, everybody says, well, gee, why is it so expensive? Well, you get what you pay for. Are you going to sell your health to the lowest bidder? So that is critical. But then here's the next step. Most companies will make claims about their products, okay? But they will not turn them over to third-party, consumer lab or NSF, to be tested by independent third-party labs. And the reason they don't, and I know this, the reason they don't is because they don't follow good manufacturing. They aren't OTC. They're not, in an FDA registered facility. So that is critical for me to start with. Well, then it's how the products are put together and how I use them. So what I want to do is just share with you that I really believe that taking nutritional supplementation needs to be just part of a healthy lifestyle. So when someone comes to me, well, I'll take them for a month or two to see how I feel. Well, the longer you take the supplements, the better you're going to feel, because it's not like someone coming in and they have a strep throat and I write a prescription for penicillin and expect them to be better in a day or two. Not with nutritional medicine. This is just like exercise. Okay, let's say, oh, I'm going to start to exercise. You go out for 3 days or a month and you start working out. How do you feel after a month? Well, maybe you're starting to feel a bit after the soreness and all that, but trust me, you're just getting started. You have to be, they always look at 90 days or 3. I look at 6 months. I always want, before you start to really understand, especially if I'm dealing with someone like who has fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue, or someone that has an autoimmune disease, or someone who's struggling with asthma or allergies, or migraine headaches. I always want 6 months. But in the end, I want these people to be on nutritional supplementation the rest of their life, because I know when you have a complete and balanced supplement, you can, it's just part of a healthy lifestyle. So my basis on all my patients is, along with a healthy diet, along with exercise, I want them to be taking high quality, well-balanced, complete and balanced nutritional supplements, which is the Ariix Optimals. That's how Ariix put it together. That's how I've worked with them. We've looked at every nutrient, trying to get at advanced levels, and we'll talk about that. And some people, they like MOA. I like to add MOA to the Optimals. It's kind of like Batman and Robin. They work well together. We talk about balance. It really works. So if some people say, and it's always an economic decision, what do I do? I hate taking pills. I won't take them. Well, then MOA is at least a good option. I don't mind it, but I like adding it to the Optimals. Now, the Optimals don't have minerals, so some people say, well, maybe if I take Optimal M and MOA, I can do that. That's fine. But ideally, if you ask me what's ideally, I like the Optimals at least as a minimum, and adding MOA to it. Now, many people as we get older, especially as women are getting closer to menopause, or they're starting to look at that, they're worried about thinning of the bone, osteoporosis, or osteopenia. Well, that's when we look at Magna-Cal-D, and I'm going to explain all of these, but I just want you to understand how so I'll add Magna-Cal-D to at least the Optimals, or Optimals and MOA. They're not just by themselves. But Magna-Cal-D was developed for that reason, and I'll explain it when we go through a little bit more. But the same thing is, I was talking to a physician yesterday, and he told me, because I don't know much about Israeli situation, but he said the studies in Israel show that 80% of the population is deficient in omega-3 fatty acids. So if you don't get it in your diet, you have a great choice of omega-Q, and I'll explain that. So I feel this is all what I call cellular nutrition, or just basic. Even if you're healthy, you don't have any health problems, I at least try to do this, or a combination, depending on your situation. Your financial situation is very important, and then also where we are. Now, the others are what I call enhancers. And I look at Vinali, but I don't use Vinali alone. I always add it to at least the Optimals, or Optimals and MOA. BioPro Q is another enhancer, and I'm going to share in more detail so you know each one. But and then Restorix obviously is a detox, and we all gather, toxins, heavy metals, toxins throughout, and we can detox with Restorix. So I look at that more as an enhancer, or something somebody might do for a month or two, once a year. Some people have really serious problems, they take it longer. I mean, it's safe to take every day if you want, but that's how I do it. So let's just start first with cellular nutrition, Optimal M and Optimal D. This is just part of a healthy lifestyle. But I define cellular nutrition as providing all the essential nutrients to the cell at their optimal or advanced level, not RDA. RDA is recommended dietary allowance. And these levels have been shown to provide a health benefit in our medical literature. Now, RDAs, I'm going to talk, I might have another slide here, but you know, as a physician, one of the hurdles I had to go once I went from traditional medicine over to nutritional medicine was RDAs, because I was taught in medical school, all you needed were RDA levels. And that was really hard for me because you could get that in a healthy diet. And that's what I had been telling my patients for the first 20 years of my medical practice. But what I found is that RDAs have nothing to do with the chronic degenerative diseases. So these levels are the levels that have been shown. But like I shared last night, is that they do these, everybody studies nutrients one at a time. That's how we do our research. And so what happens is that you got to put it together. So what happens is that if we're going to have the best chance to prevent oxidative stress and reduce the risk of these degenerative diseases, we need the optimal levels, not RDA. See, RDAs are what one-a-day vitamins are based on. And I can show you study after study, there's no health benefit. You're wasting your time, your money, and effort. But for example, and the RDA of vitamin E is 30 international units. Well, you don't begin to see a health benefit in the medical literature till you get 100 international units, or that health benefit seems to go up all the way up to 400 international units. Well, think about it. I told my patients, well, go out and eat 400 IUs of vitamin E. That's the optimal level. You only need to get in 33 heads of spinach, 27 pounds of butter, or 5 pounds of wheat germ each and every day. You could say the same thing for vitamin C. Vitamin C, the RDA is 60 milligrams, but you don't see a health benefit with chronic disease until you get over 1,000 milligrams to 2,000. We'll go out and eat that amount of vitamin C. It only takes 80 avocados, 18 large oranges. You just can't do it. So I had to realize the only way to get to these levels is to supplement your diet. But there's another thing that happens, and this is the key that I want to share with you. It's called synergy. This separates Ariix from anything else. What am I talking about? Well, see, antioxidants, they work in different parts of the body against different free radicals. And so, for example, and they need the B cofactors to do their job along with what we call the antioxidant minerals. And so what happens is vitamin E is the absolute best antioxidant within the cell membrane. Vitamin C is the best antioxidant within the plasma or the blood. Glutathione, you don't have to understand, but is the best antioxidant within the cell itself. Well, what we find is when you put them together, instead of studying one at a time, they actually replenish each other. Vitamin C will replenish vitamin E so it can be used over and over and over again. Ariix actually puts alpha-lipoic acid in the optimals. It's very expensive. I don't know of any other company that does it. But alpha-lipoic replenishes not only vitamin E, but the intracellular glutathione. And they all work together, so 1 + 1 is not 2. It becomes 30, 40, 50. And you share, and I'll talk to you about the grapeseed extract, but I'm going to tell you right now, banali. If you were to take just grapeseed extract by itself, it is 7 to 8 times more potent than vitamin C and vitamin E. But if you add it to cellular, to the optimals, it's 50 times more potent than vitamin E and 50 times more potent than vitamin C. And remember my principle. It's about balance. I want to have enough antioxidants on board to handle the number of free radicals that I'm producing, so we don't have oxidative stress. And when you get someone out of this, you can tell. You can see the color in their face. You can see the color in their skin. You can see they feel energy. I feel better, because when you start RX supplements, you're nourishing your body like no one's ever nourished it before. And there's, yes, you can go through a little detox because you start to ache a little bit, or you might get a little headache, but if it's mild, I tell my patients, just stay with it. If it's moderate or severe, sometimes it's just too much too fast. These are potent, but that's less than 10%. Then I back off and just slowly build up, and they all can, over 2 or 3 weeks, get on that. But synergy is a very important concept, because that's why Ariix has put it together. If you read my book, you'll see I've got almost 2 pages of all these nutrients you take, and I have to write everything generically. That's the way my publishers are, because I have to share health concepts. I'm not trying to sell a product. But here I can openly share why I recommend Ariix to my patients, because not only the quality, but they put it together, made my life simple. Instead of going out and taking 40, 50 pills, remember that, Liz? When she got health benefit, you know, doctors have egos. We got big. I said, I can put this together. So we go down to the health food store. We spent 2 hours, 3 hours, go to 2 different health food stores to get everything that was in cellular nutrition. I came home with 40 bottles. It cost me $290 US, and that wasn't even hardly a month's worth on, and you would have to take all these pills. Well, what Ariix did, they put it in 2 bottles. That's what Optimal V and Optimal M. They just put it in there. You take 3 Optimal V and 2 Optimal M in the morning with food, and again at night. You've got it. That's the beauty. Well then, Deanna, this is hers, you know, Moa, mother of all. Moa is amazing. There's nothing out there. Most drinks, nutritional supplement drinks, contain 1 or 2, you know, antioxidants. They'll contain mangosteen, or they'll, you know, maybe they, you know, it's like grape juice. It has that. There are 36 superfoods in MOA. Now, if you look at it, just look at this slide. You know, even you look at the reishi, all the mushrooms on the bottom, cordyceps, I can show you studies that show health benefits of boosting your immune system, of doing, you know, improving white cell count, doing all of this just in that. Pomegranate, you know, pomegranate, you guys have it here. Did you know there are studies out there that if you take pomegranate, you can reverse or decrease the hardening of your arteries? It's the only nutrient that I've seen that does this. And pomegranate, well then, noni fruit, goji berry, I can show you every one of these. Every one of these has a health benefit. They just put it together. Now, it's potent on its own. And if someone says, hey, I don't want to take the optimals, I want to do this or that, this is a great start. The only thing I say about MOA is it doesn't have the minerals, okay? But if you add this to the optimals, I mean, you talk about synergy, you're going up here, because this is loaded with antioxidants. Then you support all the supporting nutrients. So that's why I call it Batman and Robin. They work together. But that's something that you work as you're out talking to people and you're there, but at least you know. There are people, if they've not taken supplementation, they take MOA, they're going to have wonderful results. I mean, they feel better. You've seen it. It's there. So it's not bad, but I'm approaching it, this is from a physician's perspective. This is what I want. I'd rather add MOA to the optimals, or maybe to Optimal M if nothing else. But if people, you get them started with MOA. See, some people, they don't want to take everything all at once. It scares them. You start with MOA and they start feeling better. Well, what else do you have? What else can you do? You know, what can I add? You can add, well, the next time you can add something different. But MOA, now I got the bottle here, but you know, that's an old slide. These packets are really nice. And I mean fibromyalgia, there you go, you got it right there. So that's it. Now, I want to talk about this product, MagnaCal D. Deanna Latson and I worked a year and a half developing MagnaCal-D. And I work in consultation with the development, because when we were trying to develop our calcium magnesium product, there were two major studies that came out of Europe showing that if you take MagnaCal or calcium either alone or not in balance, you actually can increase your risk of heart attacks and strokes, because the calcium was being deposited in your arteries and not in your bones, or some was, not all. So we sat there, and the last thing we wanted to do at Ariix was develop a product that wasn't safe. So we spent a year and a half researching the medical literature, and we found that it's very important that you not only have highly absorbable calcium and magnesium. Many people put in calcium carbonate that, you know, most older people can't absorb that well. But you have to have highly absorbable calcium magnesium, and it has to be in a 1-to-1 ratio. That's very important. But even to be able to absorb your calcium, you have to have good levels of vitamin D. So we put 2,000 international units in the MagnaCal-D to make sure you have the high levels. Now there's 2,000 I use in the optimals. So that's a very good dose of vitamin D for normal people over time. But those are critical, because if your vitamin D levels are low, if I have a lady come into me and say, I have osteoporosis, the first thing I do is do a blood vitamin D level. And the reason is, we didn't pay attention to that. Most doctors will just order calcium, or calcium and magnesium, or whatever. But you need to have vitamin D and good levels to even absorb the calcium. But here's the key nutrient. It's vitamin K2. It's not K1, it's vitamin K2. What the medical literature showed is that vitamin K2 actually acts as a traffic cop. It literally attracts the calcium into the bone where it's needed. But it actually, in the arteries, blocks the absorptions of calcium into your arteries. And this is the key, and it's right in the MagnaCal-D. Now there's you know, trace minerals, you know, there's other things in, but those are the key things in MagnaCal-D, and that's what makes it unique. And I find it's a wonderful, you know, something to add, you know, to the cellular nutrition. Now, omega Q, you know, fish oil, there's a lot of fish oil out there, but we all know that in most fish, there's a lot of heavy metals and toxins. I mean, in the United States, we tell people don't eat tuna more than once a week, or you can get heavy metal toxicity. That's really exciting, isn't it? You know, we talk about having fresh fish and not farm-raised fish and all of that. So, but the larger the fish, if the higher it is up in the food chain, the greater the heavy metal is and the toxins in that fish. So most companies will get their omega-3 fats from larger fish, and they actually have to purify it, you know, try to get rid of it through petrochemicals. That's a method to do to get rid of the heavy metals. What Deanna Latson did, and I wasn't even aware of this, she went to the only raw provider of what we call fish omega-3 that comes from small fish, anchovies and sardines. There's only one company that makes it. Early on in Ariix, before we ever opened up in Israel, she would not go anywhere else but that. And the reason is, because they're smaller fish, they don't have that much heavy metal. And this company was able to take out all the heavy metals by a natural process. Didn't use any chemicals, just a natural process. Purified. Well, we ran short. When we first got started, you know, companies start and you try to meet demand. It's kind of like opening up a restaurant. You know, how many waiters and cooks do you need? You know, you walk in, if they get overwhelmed. Well, that's what happened to Ariix. Ariix started to sell out. Well, they wanted to get other sources to meet the demand, because it's going to be a month or two before we get the other source. Deanna said no. And I tell you, that impressed me early on, dealing with Deanna Latson. She's my hero. Because that's what makes this so good. Well, why do you need omega-3 fatty acids? It's very simple. When you get most of our diets, because of our processed foods, everything, we get too much omega-6. Omega-6 fatty acids become our inflammatory products in our body. Omega-3 fatty acids become our anti-inflammatories. You study the medical literature, you should be taking these fats in on a 1-to-1 ratio, or at the worst, 1-to-2. In the United States, the average is we're taking in 1 omega-3 for every 30 or 40 omega-6. We just have so much inflammation. That's just, now I don't know about Israel. I think your diet's better. I don't know the statistics here. But what you find is we've got too much inflammation in our bodies. This is a great thing to add to balance it out. Now, yes, you want to eat more cold water fish or eat nuts and that have the good omega-3s and some of the some of the vegetables and that have omega-3. But some of us can't do it. Well, this is a great way to do it, and that's how we did omega-Q. But also they added CoQ10. And I'm going to talk more about CoQ10 when we talk about BioPro-Q. But CoQ10 is responsible for the production of over 90% of the energy in each and every cell in the body. Well, as we get older, our CoQ10 levels go down. As we take cholesterol-lowering drugs, statin drugs, they not only block the production of cholesterol, but they block the production of CoQ10. So as we get older, we need CoQ10. Most times you have to take these separately. Well, in Ariix, they put them together, and it is a great addition. And so that's why Omega-Q is there. Yes. 2 a day. 1 capsule twice a day. It's 40 milligrams. Now, into 2. Now, the thing is, I'm going to share about the quality and why we developed the standalone CoQ10 product. But it's still good. This is what most companies use. But let's go on. I'll talk about this, and then we're going to talk and how I put these all together. Vanillin is an enhancer. And the reason it's an enhancer is because it's the most potent antioxidant we know in the world today. Like I told you, it is 50 times more potent than vitamin C and 50 times more potent than vitamin E. Well, that really brings balance back. So when I deal in medicine, I have people come in with a chronic degenerative disease. The medical literature shows me they have much higher free radical oxidative stress than someone who's healthy. I'm going to use MS as an example. So if you take a MS patient, multiple sclerosis, and you compare them to someone who is healthy, that has no disease, they have much more free radical oxidative stress. But then there's studies that show if that, MS is not steady, there's flare-ups and down. They show someone who's in a flare-up, they check it there, well, they have much more oxidative stress than someone that has MS that's stable. We see this. Well, as a physician and practicing nutritional medicine, if I'm going to utilize this, I want to remember balance. I want to bring oxidative stress back under control. So I add vanillin to cellular nutrition. It's an enhancer. I don't use it alone. Even though there's some vitamin C in there to make it even more potent, I still use it as an enhancer. And it has some other qualities. It is a natural anti-allergen. Now, what do I mean by that? It actually improves any allergies. I have my children that come in that have asthma, that have hay fever, struggle if you're in an environment where there's a lot of pollutants in the air or that and you're reacting, they all improve. But again, if my mother comes in and they have a child that's struggling with asthma and I get them on vanillin, if you want to take notes, in children, I use 2 milligrams per pound per day. And you can do that in divided doses. So we base that on weight of the child. The beautiful thing with Ariix is they're capsules. You can easily open any capsule, put it in a drink. Pure Nourish is wonderful, and you'll find that you can take that. You still absorb it as well. It's there, but you have that option with your children. Same thing with the Optimals, you know. And I've sent to Ariix my children's equivalents or what they need, and I hope you spread that around. If you haven't, we get that for you. But Vanali is great. But I tell my mothers, if we start in the fall, you'll be better in the spring, the child. If we start in the spring, they're better in the fall. It's not like drugs, but they all improve. I have several physicians in the United States that are doing what I'm doing with Ariix, and we all see a consistent improvement with allergies. I mean, I've had people, adults with malignant asthma, have significant improvement. They get off prednisone. They used to live on their inhalers. They just forget where their inhalers are. I've written some of those stories in my book. But the other thing it's a natural anti-inflammatory. You know, if you have arthritis, or we say we have too much inflammation, people notice a difference taking Vanali because it's a natural anti-inflammatory. And it's really nice because most of us have too much inflammation. The other thing is, and this is what people I want to share with you, is that it's a very small molecule and it penetrates all the tissues in the body. Grapeseed extract. But it crosses over the brain, the blood-brain barrier, around the brain, nerves, and eyes. You know, I don't know how much trouble you have if anybody has macular degeneration of the eye, but I have had significant improvement just using Vanali in those patients because it gets into the eye. Anybody that has a degenerative disease, MS, or something like that, I always have them on Vanali. The other thing is, and I don't have it down here, but it strengthens arteries, the elastic fiber of arteries. So when I have a diabetic patient or someone with diabetes, that's one of the things they have trouble with, is the damaging of the arteries. I always have them on Vanali and the Optimals at least, if not Optimals and more. Those are things that I've done, but Vanali obviously is my favorite enhancer. It's what helps my wife, you know, the fibromyalgia. Because it crosses into the blood-brain barrier, people with fibromyalgia, one of the things they have is mental fogginess, that they can't think at times. I mean, it really varies. And the first thing my patients notice they're more alert, they're more focused. They may even see visual improvement. There's just things about it. The nice thing I like about Ariix's Optimals is they put 100 milligrams of Vanali in your Optimals. I mean, you're getting one capsule just by taking the Optimals. Well, then if you add a couple of Vanali to it, you know, then you're getting more. It's really nice because we just see such health benefits with this. Now, I talked about Restorex last night, so I'm not going to, for Crohn's, I'll explain all that. I'm getting there, okay? What I want you to, you know, I talked about this and how it works last night, so I'm not going to spend as much time. Yeah.
So before we go to the Restorex, alongside with Vanali, the MS patient, which products do you recommend to be more focused on the MS?
Okay, I'm gonna go over each disease a little bit to give you general information. And I'll tell you, I can't go over each disease. There's just no way I can talk. And I want you to get the principles. I'm not treating a disease when I recommend supplements. I'm trying to bring oxidative stress back under control. But let me just finish these, and then I'm going to share a little bit of how I want to spend some time. Because people come to me and they want to know, and I can't talk to each person individually. And so I'll give you principles that I do, and you'll figure it out. But anyway, you know, Restorex is a detox center in a bottle. You have the option to be at your home, take and detox by taking Restorix. It's wonderful. And I told you last night, I used to have to send patients to a detox center, and you have to take time off work. You go, you get detoxed intravenously, and then you turn around and you get back in your environment. This is something you can do or choose to do a month a year, 2 months a year, 3 months. Some people who are struggling, they won't come off this, but it works. And it has that ability to remove toxins and heavy metals. But here's the health benefits that I didn't focus on last night I want to share with you. See, heavy metals create more free radicals. That's one of the causes of increased free radicals. Well, when you get rid of them, you decrease the number of free radicals you have to neutralize with antioxidants. But what happens is they also increase acidity. We're too acidic in our bodies. We need to be more alkaline. Well, when you get rid of this, the pH comes down. I have people on Restorix, and they almost can tell on the third, fourth day if they've got arthritis or inflammation or that. They can tell a difference. I know I can. But that's why you see the effect. Also, what you find is it allows the GI tract to heal. We hear a lot about absorption of our nutrients. It's very important. We get leaky gut that can lead to other diseases, autoimmune, all that. Well, those are tears. Restorix actually helps heal the GI tract because that's where it works. And we see that. But it actually takes pressure off our liver because the liver is our detox center, really, in the body. Well, if you're taking and helping it out, you take pressure off the liver. Plus, we know in the GI tract, our immune system is it's very important for our immune system to have a healthy GI tract. So we see immune function improve again. So Restorix is something, how do I use it? It depends on the individual. I have people, like I said, since it works in the GI tract, you're not absorbing it, you can take it every day. But I recommend maybe doing 1 to 2 months a year, that you're on it. And then it helps. Now, this is healthy people. Now, in my cancer patients, I can show you studies where this really helps cancer patients that are getting chemo radiation. And they've done it. Yeah, and you can take it twice a day. Oh yes, yeah. I'll share that in my, just what I do. Because I run into the problem, and I just want to go over one other nutrient here, and then I'll talk about how I overall, just so you have a lot of questions. Now, the ubiquinone, CoQ10, like I told you, is a very important nutrient because it actually is responsible for over 90% of the energy production in each cell. But it really becomes important for those high energy cells, like the heart, the brain, and your immune system. But the problem with CoQ10, it's hard to absorb. Now, in my medical practice, I want to reach certain blood levels, so I do a lot of CoQ10 blood levels. Well, in my previous company, we had strictly ubiquinone. And ubiquinone, yes, it's better than, previous powder forms and all that, but it's still hard to get the blood levels up, and I was having to use 12 to 14 of their capsules. So when Ariix decided to develop their standalone CoQ10, I said, you want the ubiquinol form. That's the natural form, that's the active form. Its studies show, and depending which one you do, it's absorbed 5 to 10 times greater than the ubiquinone form. So it's less expensive for my patients. I can get the same blood levels with 2 BioPro-Q as I used to take 10 or 12 of the other. So that's a very important thing. So it comes from Konica, again, it's the best company in the world. So when you see people go out, and I know what the cost of the raw product is, and I can get that over, we call it Costco, I don't know what your stores are here, but Walmart or Walgreens, whatever. I can get that there. And it's cheaper, and it's ubiquinol for them. I can guarantee you they probably have 5 to 10% of what they say in the label. So if they say they got 100 milligrams, I can count on about 5 to 10 milligrams. Because that's the cost. You can't even do it with a cost, because Konica controls it. They have the patent on this form. And so everybody has to buy from the same source. So the only way they can compete on price is just not have what they say is on the label. It's just a game that's played in nutritional medicine. But I'll tell you what, they get everything, you know, that's why we can count on this. And when I use this and do blood levels, I get the blood levels I want. I know it, I've done it. But why is it a great enhancer? Let me just share. The thing is, I told you it's there, but it's key for the high energy cells. Well, all the studies with CoQ10 were originally done on heart failure when you get a weak heart. You know, there's 3 parts of a heart. A heart's a muscle that pumps your blood, and it has valves, so you keep the pump directly. Well, there's blood supply to that heart muscle called coronary arteries. And you also have an electrical system in the heart that makes it beat in a coordinated fashion. That's what the heart is. Well, many people get a weak heart. The heart weakens. And what we find is the fact that as that heart weakens, it uses up its fuel source, which is CoQ10. So early on in the mid-1980s, Peter Langshan, a cardiologist, biochemist, that I have visited with on occasion, I've had the privilege, he done major studies, but what they found is the worse the heart failure, the lower the CoQ10 levels. So Japan developed this high-grade CoQ10, so they started supplementing and seeing what would happen. Well, what they found, and they did large studies, 6,000 people in 5 different clinical trials, all of them improved, 80 to 85% saw significant improvement in their heart function. Now, they didn't cure the heart disease, no matter whether it was from a virus, lupus, coronary artery disease where they lost muscle, it did not matter. But what we are doing is giving the CoQ10, the fuel source, back to the heart so it could literally compensate for its weakened state. And they got better. I have literally been able to help patients significantly improve the quality of their life by using CoQ10. And it works with any medication they're on. And the studies show this. But it also has been shown to be a tremendous booster of our immune system. So any of my patients who are going through cancer treatment or autoimmune diseases or anything like that, I use BioPro-Q. But I don't have to use that much, folks. I just use a couple in any of my autoimmune patients. I have them take 2 a day. But over time, they build up their immune system, and I'm going to just share a little bit. But also, it's great in brain function, all of that, and it's just a wonderful nutrient. There are now many studies going on with CoQ10 alone in different problems, especially cancer. And so what I find, let me just check here. Okay, what I find, and I want to just talk to you a little bit, because I can't talk to each person individually. I put these together, and I've learned over the years what to use and what not to use and how much to use. It's not anything that's written in a textbook. But what I have done is I've shared, the problem is oxidative stress. It's not a nutritional deficiency. And so that's my goal. I just want to bring oxidative stress back under control. The health improves once I do that. I can tell, I can do tests, I can see it, that there's actually urine tests you can check for the oxidative stress. So that's what I'm doing. And so balance is the key. Again, you want to have more antioxidants and their supporting nutrients available than the free radicals you're producing. I just talked to a marathon runner this week, and I was telling him, many of the triathletes, you know, they're doing that, or they're the cyclists or the marathon runners, they don't understand that if they go, they're hurting their bodies. It's not healthy. You've got to, if you want to do it, you've got to really have balance, you got to take a lot more in the way of antioxidants, and I've laid it out for them, for an athlete, so you can be healthy. Otherwise, it's going to hurt your health. Dr. Kenneth Cooper wrote that book, The Antioxidant Revolution. It says over-exercise is actually dangerous for your health. So modest exercise is what we do. And so I'm going to just, I'll take just a minute here. First of all, there's a lot of people here with fibromyalgia. So what do I recommend? What's my wife take? Well, here's the key. The optimals to me are the key. They're still, but I give them to every patient, so that's not hard. I start them. There's a lot of people that add MOA to it, now that MOA is available, and their fibromyalgia improves. Well, what? Well, it's loaded with antioxidants. See, I can show you studies that show that fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, is due to oxidative stress. Actually, Kenneth Cooper, in his book, he had a whole chapter on the overtraining syndrome. And when my wife had her improvement, my patients were improving. He proved that overexercise was oxidative stress. But I started to look through the symptoms of the overtraining syndrome. It was almost identical to fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue. So I always start them out on the optimals, and now optimals or MOA if they can afford it. And then Venali is the key, okay? So I always, in my recommendations, give a minimal and an optimal. So my optimal, I like them to take 4 Venali a day, 2 Venali twice a day, on top of the optimals. Because I want, you know, they've struggled, they're struggling with life. But because it penetrates the blood-brain barrier, the first improvement I see is they can focus more. They get out of that mental fogginess. The next thing to improve a month or 2 later is they're sleeping better. Remember, one of the hallmark signs is what we call non-restorative sleep. They wake up as tired as they went to bed. They're not restored. So that is a key for them. The other thing is total body pain. The pain slowly gets better later. But if you can afford it, I like to add 2 BioPro Q, because part of this syndrome, they call it fibromyalgia chronic fatigue. It's the same disease with different expression, but their immune system is run down. They have allergies, they struggle, and so that's something they do. That's my optimal recommendations. If someone comes to me and they say, I can't afford all that, I'm sick, I'm disabled, la-da-da, what's the minimal? Well, my minimal is the optimals and 2 Venali a day. That's what you'll see in my recommendations. Now, it takes them longer. But what I've learned over the years is I need to have you give me 6 months. Okay? I don't want, I don't want someone to say, well, I'll try it a month or 2. If they do, I say, don't try. I've just learned. My wife had a miraculous improvement, but most patients don't. They just take that long. Now, even at 6 months, they're not where they want to be, but they know they're on the right track. My wife has improved year after year after year. When I was first married to her, it was like she was stepping down there were times I come home and she's wiped out. We have 3 preschool kids, and she just had to go rest, get out, and by 8 o'clock, 8:30, she was in bed. Well, when she started nutritional supplementation, that was before she got sick, all of a sudden she added 3 to 4 hours to her day. She slept better. She started dreaming for the first time. That's it. But that's what I do for fibromyalgia. Now, autoimmune diseases, and yes. It's not critical, but it's nice to have. Nice to have. No, I gave you a minimal and optimal. And the reason I do that is when I deal with my patients, cost is always a consideration, okay? Cost of anything when you start to do it. And so if someone can only afford MOA, I've had fibromyalgia patients respond to MOA. If that's all they can afford, it's worth trying. But if they come to me and ask me what I do, my optimal recommendations would be the optimals plus MOA, 4 Venali, and 2 BioPro Q. That's it. Now, There are other things I can add to that. You'll see in my, Magna Cal D, because they're short of magnesium, they have very tight myofascial bands in their shoulders. Magnesium is very good for that. But we're just trying to get them to improve. My minimal would be at least the optimals and Venali. Now, in autoimmune disease, now let me just give you my theory. I have had wonderful results with autoimmune. To explain to you, an autoimmune disease, our immune system starts attacking self. If it attacks a nerve lining, the myelin sheath, they get MS. If it attacks the joint, you get rheumatoid arthritis. If it attacks the bowels, you get Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis. If it attacks the connective tissue, you can end up with lupus or even scleroderma. But it's our immune system attacking self. I was always taught in medical school that it was due to an overactive immune system. So most of the treatment is to suppress the immune system. They put them on chemotherapeutic drugs, Plaquenil, methotrexate. That's what they do. They even try to do it with MS, but what they found is MS patients didn't respond to that. So now they use drugs like Copaxone, which actually boosts the immune system. Well, when you take nutritional supplementation, you've got this inflammation going on. The tissue around everything is severely depleted in antioxidants because you've got this chronic inflammation going on. Well, and that's what we see. So when you take nutritional supplementation, you're hitting this on two sides. One, we're building up, this antioxidant deficiency and their supporting nutrients, but you're also building up the immune system. What I have learned in autoimmune disease, we're not dealing with an overactive immune system. We're dealing with a confused immune system. Our immune system should be attacking self. It's out there checking self, non-self. Oh, if it's a virus, a bacteria, it destroys it. It's not supposed to attack. It's confused. So what I see in my patients with any of these is they have less attacking, and then you're building up the antioxidant defense system so there's less damage. It takes 6 or 7 months sometimes to even see any improvement. So whenever I deal with someone with Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, MS, lupus, any of those, says you gotta give me 7 months. Now, not everybody gets a health benefit, but I will say the majority do. Rheumatoid arthritis, most of them do. MS, not as many. It varies on what. But I basically use, again, the optimals as a baseline. If they want to add MOA to that, that's fine. But then I use, again, 2 to 4 Venali and 2 BioPro-Q. So do you see a pattern here? It's very similar. Why is that well, it's because I'm not treating a disease. I'm building up the body, I'm equipping the body to build up. But when you see improvement with people with disease, you get the understanding, gee, that can help protect my body from getting ill in the beginning. It does decrease risk, and the quality of life is improved, and that's what we're trying to do. We're just trying to improve that, but that's basically what I do. Now that can be optimal. You can, adding omega Q is good in rheumatoid arthritis, especially in MS, because that's what makes up the myelin sheath, and that's what's going. Yes.
So you say I can understand from you that it's possible to make the immune system more focused on the correct job that it is.
It's a depleted immune system, is what I'm telling you. They think it's overactive. I'm just telling you, there was a major two articles in the New England Journal of Medicine. That's our guru. And they talked about autoimmune disease and what starts it. I was, oh good, they got the answer. I read it, both of them. And they kind of shrugged their shoulders at the end. They don't know. But all I know is my clinical, I don't have research, I haven't done studies, you don't do it. This is my clinical experience. I'm just sharing it with you. You can take it for what it's worth. And so that's basically where we are. And so that's how I use these. That's basically just putting it together for you. But I want people who are healthy to get on, at least on the optimals, or maybe at least on the MOA. You know, everybody should be taking, and that's what you need to share. And you start that, you've helped these people. My patients who take the optimals have a health benefit over those that don't. I just know it. I see it every day. Now, you want to have good exercise, modest, and you want to eat a healthy diet. You had a question?
Because in order to get the right doses, supplements, we should take many pills.
Right.
That's the optimals. You have to take 3 in the morning,
Right.
5 in the morning, 5 in the
Right.
evening.
Right.
Why don't you make
A big capsule and try to swallow it? That's the problem. No, she asked that you take so many pills. That's part of it. What I recommend, and I mean, that's why people take a 1 a day, because it's easy. And MOA is really there. The thing is, you're getting a lot more with MOA than a 1 a day. The problem is, all these nutrients, when you try to provide cellular nutrition, it's not taking a vitamin E capsule. I mean, you could get all the vitamin you need E in there, and there are studies that do that. But when you put it together, you can't get what I need in 1 capsule or 1 pill. So this is what you have to do. But trust me, when you do it, you're protecting your health. That's all I'm telling you. You know, if you wait to get sick, trust me, they'll give you pills. They'll give you this, they'll do that. I wrote a book, it's not published in Hebrew, it's called Death by Prescription. And it's the 3rd leading cause, adverse drug reactions are the 3rd leading cause of death in the US and Canada, well documented. And yet, I have doctors coming, well, quit taking your supplements, they're gonna hurt you, take my medicine. Well, yeah, duh, and you know, so these are safe levels, but they work together, and that's why I explained, yes, there's nothing, size of pills are very important, but trust me, most people try to put it in tablets. Tablets are compressed, it heats it, and they're harder to swallow. It costs 20% more to put them in capsules. Well, Ariix decided they want the best, they want them in capsules. They're much easier to swallow. And the nice thing I like in my children, you can open it up, or my elderly have trouble swallowing, and they can open up and put it in a drink. And so I'm going to move on now, because I don't want to but I want to talk about slenderize. Okay? Why don't diets work? You know, what we find is the fact that 98% of the diets today, within 1 year, if you lose weight on any diet, I don't care which one you're talking, people will gain the weight back. In 2 years, they gain more weight back. So diets fail 98% of the time. Why? Because they're a short-term solution for a long-term problem. My patients that come and say, oh, Dr. Strand, I went on such and such a diet. Well, the connotation is you're going on a diet. Somewhere in the future, you're going to be coming off that diet, usually returning to those poor eating habits that got you in trouble in the beginning. So when we looked at it, a lot of diets are not balanced. You know, they'll fake it out. They either eliminate fat, or they eliminate carbs, or they do this. And even though some people can play, and there's some therapeutic advantages of nutritional ketosis and that, doing different diets, you know, most diets aren't balanced. They're not as healthy as just eating good, healthy carbs, good proteins, and good fat. But the big thing is they don't tackle the core issue, which is insulin resistance. What happens is that there is it used to be called Syndrome X, now we call it prediabetes. But because of our poor lifestyles, which is basically inactivity, and eating foods that tend to spike our blood sugars, and I'm going to get into that, over time, we become less and less sensitive to our own insulin. Well, the body compensates for that by actually producing more and more insulin because you're not as sensitive. It's called insulin resistance. But as blood insulin levels go up, you literally are tipping over into an abnormal metabolic state. So I'm telling you this is a physician's perspective. But what happens is your blood pressure goes up. you start gaining an unusual amount of weight around your middle. Why? Because you can't utilize calories normally. See, the muscle normally takes up 90% of all calories and utilizes as energy. But the muscle becomes insulin resistant first, so most of the calories that you used to utilize as energy are now diverted to the fat cells of the abdomen, and insulin's jobs as it goes up, it is to convert that sugar to fat and then block the release of that fat. So people, then we see cholesterol going up, the VLDL cholesterol going up, triglycerides, the other fat in the blood going up, the good cholesterol going down. Then we see eventually a significant increased risk of heart disease and stroke. In fact, people who get into this have 20 times the risk of having a heart attack or stroke. This is Gerald Raven's work out of Stanford. This is what I dealt with. And in the 90s, I started to research this. And I started to research, and I wrote a book. It's not in Hebrew, but it's Healthy for Life. But I explain all of this, and I spent 3 years researching what I'm sharing with you today. But I'm going to just break it down real simple here. We know that the metabolic syndrome leads to diabetes. Now, if you can follow this, this graph here was given to me by a pharmaceutical rep that was trying to sell a drug that improved insulin sensitivity. But this is 25 years, but you could go back here another 10, 15 years. Excuse me. So what we found is patients, they didn't change their lifestyle, but they were not exercising as well. They were consuming too many high glycemic carbohydrates, and what that does is spikes the blood sugar. And when you spike your blood sugar, the body must control blood sugar in a very narrow range. And so what they did is it overstimulates the release of insulin. Then the blood sugar drops very rapidly and goes below the fasting blood sugar, and that stimulates the release of what we call your stress hormones to drive that blood sugar back up to normal. But even though the blood sugar is normal, what we found is it set off uncontrollable hunger. You just had to eat again. It was a normal response to spiking your blood sugar, and you usually craved another what we call high glycemic meal, and you just kept doing that day in and day out. It's kind of like hollering wolf. You just stimulate that insulin over and over again, and eventually over time, you become less sensitive to it. So what happens is, after about 10, 12 years of doing that, you develop insulin resistance. Well, the body actually compensates for that by increasing insulin production, okay? As long as these two lines parallel, your blood sugars remain normal. So this goes on for 12, maybe even 15 years, and then the body just can't keep making that much insulin. So blood insulin levels finally begin to drop, and then whoops, there goes your blood sugar, and we diagnose diabetes out here. The problem is, your arteries have had accelerated aging for 12, 15 years before we even diagnose diabetes. So 60%, the medical literature shows, the day I diagnose someone with diabetes in my office, 60% already have major hardening of the arteries in their heart, their brain, throughout their body. That is why 80% of our diabetics are dying prematurely from a heart attack or stroke. And it was true in 1960, it's true today. All the medication we use doesn't help that statistic because we're starting too late. So what we find is we need to start earlier. And how do we find early signs? Just an expanding waist size. Or your doctor says your blood pressure is going up. Or you're getting weight gain and you can't lose it. Because when you get in this abnormal metabolic state, you hold on to fat like a sponge holds on to water. So when I started to study this, I said, well, gee, if it's poor lifestyles that got us into this problem, maybe healthy lifestyles that improve insulin sensitivity can get us out. That's very simple, but that's what I studied. And then I applied it to my patients, and I found 3 things that improve. Eating a diet that does not spike your blood sugar, and that's eating whole foods. The enemies are processed grains and the almighty white potato. So bread, flour, rice, cereal, potatoes actually spike your blood sugar faster than if you're slapping table sugar on your tongue. That's all based on David Jenkins' work, glycemic index. You probably may have heard that. But that is the problem. And so we teach people to eat in such a way, that's Slenderize, that's what we've done. I'm giving you the science behind Slenderize, okay? And what we're doing is you have Pure Nourish, was developed with this science. It does not spike your blood sugar. It combines those good fats, the good carbs, and the good protein. And it's low glycemic. Not only is it GMO-free, gluten-free, soy-free, dairy-free, contain digestive enzymes and probiotics, but it's also low glycemic. You have one meal, Pure Nourish, or you eat that way, your blood insulin levels begin to drop. You have 2 meals, it drops more. This is the medical studies. You can get out of those carbohydrate cravings, or what I call carbohydrate addiction, within 5, 6, 7, 10 days. But the medical literature shows if you go out and splurge and you spike your blood sugar one time, that uncontrollable hunger is set off for 2 to 3 days. So you might be hungry, but it's what you did a day or two before. And that's why it's hard to cheat, folks. It's not worth it. I mean, we all do it, but we suffer, especially me. So, but doctors have focused on blood sugar, and they wait till this blood sugar goes up. We need to be looking at that expanding waist size, blood pressure kind of creeping up, those, because we have done clinical trials with the nutritional supplements, my program that I had in my clinic. We've done 3 of them. And we show all the time, even in 12 weeks, we can decrease this insulin levels by 50%. We can literally get people to tip back over into a normal metabolic state. But as that goes down, we call this first step therapy. So let me explain. You'll see Nutrify and you'll see first step therapy. Well, why did we do that? Well, in our medical community, we are encouraged, physicians are encouraged to offer our patients a trial of healthy lifestyles before we start our medication. So if they come in with early blood pressure problems, early diabetes or prediabetes, or their cholesterol's up, or that you'll see that we should give them a chance of first step therapy before we begin taking second step therapy, which is medication. Now, in the United States, I don't know if it's here, I talked to some of the doctors the last couple days, but if you see a drug for cholesterol-lowering drugs like Crestor or Lipitor or Zocor, in the United States, they always say, when diet and exercise fail, then you take our drug. Why do they do that? Well, the reason they do that, the FDA approved it for second step therapy, not first step. And they know that, that's why they've got to say that. But doctors give it lip service and they want to write drugs. That's just the way they are. So that's what first step therapy is. So when you combine a healthy diet, now this is the Slenderize program, okay? One that does not spike your blood sugar. If you look at the food list, if you look at what it is, that's what we're doing. We want you to stay away from any high glycemic foods. You significantly improve insulin sensitivity. And if you add modest exercise, you do not have to be a superstar. Simply walking briskly, 30 minutes 5 times a week, or riding your bike, or swimming, or whatever, just get the body moving aerobically. You significantly improve your insulin sensitivity from a different mechanism. And I can show you study after study, nutritional supplements. Vitamin E improves insulin sensitivity. Chromium, magnesium, grapeseed extract. I mean, these are all individual studies again. Improve insulin sensitivity, again, from a different mechanism. So in my patients, when I would share this with them in first step therapy, because they were struggling with these things with insulin resistance, their blood pressure's up, their cholesterol's up, or their blood sugar's up, or that's what I was doing. But these are healthy lifestyles. We should be able to recommend that. That's what the Slenderize program is doing. Well, if I got them to make one of the lifestyle changes, it didn't matter which one it was, I saw some improvement. If I could get them to do 2 of the 3, I saw a little bit more improvement. But if I could get them to do all 3, the results were phenomenal. And there are people out here. In fact, Anna shared with me the gal that was translating me in France.
Yes, that one.
Yeah, in France, she heard this same thing, and she thought, she's diabetic. Anna, I don't know if you want to get, but she just has had a wonderful transformation.
So you know, folks,
There is this guy who is our translator, okay? And he works in France with us. So he came for the first event in France, in Lille, when we invited Dr. Strand to talk. And he just translated his talk. And then he came to me and he was like, listen, I'm super sick, I'm obese, and my doctor is like useless. My doctor is totally useless. And he listened to everything what Dr. Strand was saying. Every single word. And now he's here. He doesn't have evidence.
She's reversed her diabetes. And I have had, seriously, I've had over 50 of my own personal patients documented in my medical practice that have reversed their diabetes. But I share this, and I don't know everybody that listens and applies this. But the point is, you have to do all 3 things. Insulin resistance is not there. But now our medical specialist in diabetes in the United States has said, we need to be treating pre-diabetes as aggressively as you do diabetes. Because by the time they're diabetic, it's too late. They looked at the worldwide medical literature, and they said, what should we be telling physicians to do? They said, there's no drug for it. It's intensive lifestyle changes. It's the Slenderize program. The day and night drops help us accomplish this. It's an aid to help us do it, but it's not the answer by itself, okay? Trust me, we need to do all of this. This is key. So what are the health benefits from a doctor's standpoint? Now everybody's excited because when the insulin levels come down, the first thing is they start releasing fat. You tip back into a normal metabolic state. You literally tip them back. And as the blood insulin levels come down, they start losing all this weight. They start releasing fat, and they say, I'm not doing anything. I said, well, why? Because I'm not relying on willpower. Well, why? Because I'm just eating a healthy diet. I feel great. My patient says, well, Dr. Strand, what's so tough about never going hungry, feeling great, having more energy, more focus, seeing your health parameters improve? That's the Slenderize program. And so their blood pressure will improve. That's what I see in my medical office. Their triglycerides, that fat comes down, their good cholesterol eventually comes up. We've shown this in clinical trials under FDA guidelines that have been published using the Slenderize or Healthy for Life program. Blood sugars improve. I tell my diabetics, you've got to give this 18 to 24 months to get optimal improvement. It does not happen because if I went back to the slide, they're way down here before they come over. So that's where we are. But you establish your healthy weight permanently. It's not a diet. These are healthy lifestyles you want to firmly establish in your life. I can't stress that more. It doesn't do any good to lose weight and gain it back. Lose weight, gain it. That's more unhealthy than staying fat. Just the way it is. So I have shared with you just some insight of what I call transformation. But it's first step therapy. That's why we do it. And you're going to see it every day as you get into this health and wellness industry. And you see the wonderful products you have. And I use Pure Nourish, by the way, as a meal replacement. In fact, in the clinical trials, we did 2 meal replacements, taught them to eat 1 regular low glycemic meal and 2 low glycemic snacks. We had a meeting 5 times a day. But Pure Nourish gets some, it's a behavioral modification tool. They just get into it. If you guys are doing any of this in your homes or you're starting to spread, and this is the way you want to build your business, trust me, have everybody write down how they eat, how they exercise, how they're taking their supplements, what they're drinking, and you look at it each week, either on your iPhone or whatever. That accountability, I learned, I went from 15% success before that to 80 to 85% success rate in my medical practice. Why? because you're taking subconscious habits and you're making them conscious. And what happens is, I didn't have to ask for perfection, I just needed honesty. If they did what I said 80% of the time, they exercised 80% of what I said, or 80% of the time, we had wonderful results. They didn't have to be perfect. But that accountability, all of a sudden, they started realizing what they weren't thinking about and how they were eating and what they were doing. That is key to Slenderize. And it is a great way. We have people in the US and we're doing it. Now, everybody wants to come up and ask me, well, what do you recommend for this? What do you recommend for that? This is my website. This is my online medical practice, just raystrand.com, okay? And that, because it's an online medical practice, there's a cost to belong. But there I give my specific generic recommendations for over 100 different diseases. So if anybody, and I give optimal and minimal recommendations, but they're generic. If you're a member and you want to write info@raystrand.com, just ask for the RX equivalent letter. And I give you the equivalence of what I'm talking about. But on the website, I have to be generic, because when I talk about a disease and I talk about grapeseed extract, I'm fine, that's education. But if I would say Vanali, then I'm making a disease claim, and that can get everybody, including me, in trouble, okay? But that's where it is, folks. My wife and I, she knows, I stayed up at night after night, for hours telling people what to do for this. I mean, we have fibromyalgia on it, we have that, we have newsletters. The other thing you can do, I've done 100 videos, medical minutes, for RX. And they're scattered around, mainly on YouTube. But I've talked about every one of these products, you get an understanding. But I don't want you to become a nutritional nut or this. You can actually look at this. If anybody wants to share that in Hebrew, welcome to it. I'm trying to share the message. Okay, she said if you go to YouTube and put in Dr. Ray Strand, 67 of these videos will come up, and you can look at it. Did you have a question?
Yeah. So there's a lot of factories that I think they need help with the Slenderize about the
Okay.
the stuff. And there's a lot of football players that they do, let's say, I don't want to say extreme sports, but they do make more than anyone else, and they release
Oxidative?
Yes. So
yeah.
with the Slenderize, it doesn't go alone. And how can you? I know that you recommend the Optimus for people that they do sports, but what is the maximum?
Optimal for that.
Yeah,
Well,
but how you can combine it with the Slenderize?
Well, Slenderize or the day and night drops.
What was the question?
Well, here's a question. He wants to know, when I get people on my Healthy for Life or Slenderize, what supplements do I add to the day and night drops? I add, at least the studies were done, which is the optimals. Okay? That was what we did, cellular nutrition. But there's a lot of people, we did a small study where the people who added Vanali did a little better. If they added Omega Q, they did a little better. If they added Restorix, they did a little better. But again, it's a cost factor. But at least the optimals. I really, if you don't add the optimals to the day and night drops, you're not going to have as much success. But here's the next one you want to look at. The healthyforlifeprogram.com. This is the internet program I used in the clinical trials. And what I have done is made that available free to RX. You go on there, it's a 12-week online program. You'll get daily emails from me. You'll get weekly trainings. It's a nutritional course, and it's free. I just give this to you. But before you click that, it's only in English. It's not in Hebrew. But yeah, so anyway, that's it. So write those down, check it out. I'm running out of time, and I'll answer questions afterwards. Okay? So you know, my book's in Hebrew. You know, this one has a lot of what I talked about. If anybody wants to know, this is the book, Healthy for Life. It's harder to get, but at least you can go to the healthyforlifeprogram.com. I'm not going to be able to answer any more questions. We've got a lot of other speakers, but I want to thank you for giving me